Welcome to Farming Aid.
In every corner of America's farmland, from the humid marshes of Florida to the rolling pastures of New England, cattle have always been part of our national story. But behind the familiar herds of Angus and Herefords lies another world, one most people have never seen. It's a world filled with rare, nearly forgotten breeds that once built rural communities, fed families, and shaped the country's agricultural identity. These cattle are survivors of another era, holding on to centuries of history and genetics that modern farming has almost erased. In this episode of Beyond the Barn, we're uncovering the hidden stories of three of America's most endangered cattle breeds. These aren't just animals, they're living links to the earliest days of settlement, when strength, adaptability, and endurance mattered more than size or speed. Each one tells a different part of the American journey, of pioneers, family farms, and the quiet resilience that defines rural life. So step beyond the barn with us as we journey into the pastures of America's forgotten cattle and uncover why saving them might just shape the future of farming itself. The Florida Cracker cattle tell one of the oldest and most dramatic of those stories. Their roots stretch all the way back to the early 1500s when Spanish explorers first brought Iberian cattle to the New World. These tough, small-framed animals were left to roam and adapt to the swamps, prairies, and pine forests of what would later become Florida. Over the centuries, they evolved into a uniquely resilient breed, perfectly suited to hot weather, humidity, and the rough forage of the southern landscape. The settlers who depended on them called themselves crackers, named for the sound of their whips used to drive the cattle through the brush. The Florida Cracker cattle are compact, with long, curving horns and a variety of coat colors that can include red, black, brown, brindle, and speckled patterns. They are known for their agility, endurance, and ability to survive where other breeds would fail. For early ranchers, they were more than livestock, they were lifelines. These cattle needed minimal care, could calve easily, and resisted diseases and parasites that plagued imported breeds. Yet by the mid-20th century, they were nearly gone. Crossbreeding with Brahman and European stock eroded their genetic purity, and modern ranchers saw them as outdated. By the 1970s, the Florida Cracker population had dwindled to a few isolated herds, mainly on family ranches that refused to let go of their heritage. Recognizing their importance, the state of Florida eventually established conservation herds to protect the breed. Today, though their numbers remain critically low, there's renewed interest among small farmers and heritage breeders who value the cracker's adaptability, low maintenance needs, and historical significance. Seeing them graze under the palms is like witnessing a piece of living history. A direct link to the cattle that helped build the earliest American frontiers. The second endangered breed that defines America's forgotten farm legacy is the Milking Devon. Unlike the Florida Cracker, which originated in the New World, the Milking Devon has deep roots in England's Devonshire region. In the 1600s, these red-coated cattle were prized for their versatility. They could pull a plow, provide rich milk, and yield tender beef. When English settlers came to New England, they brought these Devons along, and the breed quickly became the backbone of colonial agriculture. For over 2 centuries, the Milking Devon thrived in the rocky hills and small farms of the Northeast, where hardiness and temperament mattered more than size or speed of growth. What makes the Milking Devon so special is its balance of qualities. The cows produce a creamy, high butterfat milk that's ideal for cheese and butter. The bulls, though smaller than modern beef breeds, produce flavorful, well-marbled meat on grass alone. And both sexes are exceptionally strong and even-tempered, once prized as oxen for pulling wagons and clearing fields. In the days before tractors, a good team of Devon oxen could mean the difference between survival and failure for a small farm family. But as agriculture industrialized in the 19th and 20th centuries, farmers shifted to specialized breeds, Holsteins for milk, Herefords and Angus for beef, and machinery for power. The Milking Devon, which did all three jobs well but none at industrial scale, fell out of favor. Its numbers plummeted, and by the late 1900s, only a handful of herds remained in New England. Today, the Milking Devon survival depends on a small network of dedicated breeders who value its heritage and sustainability. These cattle can thrive on rough forage, handle harsh weather, and produce high-quality food without heavy input costs. For farmers seeking self-sufficiency, that makes them invaluable. The Livestock Conservancy lists the Milking Devon as critically endangered, but their growing presence on small regenerative farms offers hope. Watching a Milking Devon cow grazing in a sunlit Vermont pasture, her deep red coat glowing in the light, it's easy to see why this breed has inspired loyalty for centuries. They're not just cattle, they're part of the land's story, a bridge between old-world farming and modern sustainability. Then there's the Randall Lineback, one of the rarest and most visually striking of America's heritage cattle. With its distinct white body lined by a dark stripe down the back, dark points on the face and legs, and soft, speckled markings, the Randall Lineback looks like something out of a painting. But its history is entirely American. Originating in Vermont in the 19th century, the breed descended from common New England farm cattle that were shaped over generations to handle the region's cold winters and rugged terrain. For much of its history, the Randall Lineback was a true all-purpose breed. Farmers used them for milk, meat, and draft power, valuing their thriftiness and intelligence. They were perfectly adapted to a low-input lifestyle, thriving on hay and pasture without the need for grain or special care. In the age before commercial feeds, that made them indispensable to self-reliant farm families. The Randall survival story, however, is one of near extinction. By the 1980s, a single-family herd was all that remained. The Randalls of Vermont had maintained their line for decades, largely isolated from other breeds, preserving their genetic purity without even realizing how rare they had become. When the family could no longer sustain the herd, a group of conservationists and breeders stepped in to save the cattle. Through careful management, they rebuilt the population from that small foundation, and the breed was named in honor of the family who had unknowingly safeguarded it for generations. Today, the Randall Lineback remains critically endangered, with fewer than 1,000 animals in existence. Their rarity has turned them into symbols of resilience and agricultural heritage. They are increasingly valued by small farmers interested in maintaining genetic diversity and by those seeking cattle that can thrive on natural forage in colder climates. The Randall's milk is rich and flavorful, its beef lean yet tender, and its temperament intelligent and calm. Seeing them in the field feels like stepping back into a time when every farm animal had a name, a purpose, and a role in daily survival. What unites the Florida Cracker, the Milking Devon, and the Randall Lineback is more than just rarity, it's their representation of what farming once was and could be again. These breeds remind us that sustainability isn't a new invention, it's an old practice that modern agriculture lost sight of. They were bred not for industrial output but for balance, endurance, and independence. In a world increasingly concerned about climate change, genetic diversity, and resilient food systems, these endangered cattle may hold answers to future challenges. Each breed carries unique traits that modern breeders are beginning to appreciate once more. The Florida Cracker's disease resistance and heat tolerance are invaluable in an era of rising temperatures. The Milking Devon's ability to produce quality food on pasture alone fits perfectly into regenerative agriculture models. The Randall Lineback's cold hardiness and thriftiness offer a blueprint for low-input, sustainable northern farming. These are not just quaint relics of the past, they are potential cornerstones of a more resilient agricultural future. Yet, saving these cattle requires more than admiration. It demands active conservation through breeding, awareness, and support from both farmers and consumers. Organizations like the Livestock Conservancy, the Florida Cracker Cattle Association, and heritage livestock networks have made incredible progress, but numbers are still dangerously low. In some cases, there are fewer than 500 registered animals of a single breed. Every birth counts. Every farmer who chooses to raise one of these cattle contributes to keeping their lineage alive. There's also a growing cultural movement to bring heritage livestock back into the public eye. Farmers markets, local dairies, and grass-fed beef operations are rediscovering the value of these breeds not just for their meat or milk, but for their story. Consumers are increasingly drawn to products that connect them to real history and sustainable practices. A Randall Lineback cheese, a Milking Devon beef roast, or a Florida cracker beef cut isn't just food, it's a taste of America's agricultural roots. When you meet farmers who work with these endangered breeds, you quickly sense that it's about more than economics. It's about stewardship. Many describe it as a responsibility, a calling to keep history alive through living animals. They see themselves as caretakers of bloodlines that once built communities and fed families across generations. That emotional connection is what keeps the effort going, even when breeding programs are small and financially challenging. Visiting a farm that raises any of these breeds feels different from a visit to a modern feedlot. There's a sense of intimacy and continuity. The cows are curious and calm, the pace slower, the air filled with the quiet rhythm of natural life. You can feel the weight of tradition in the fences, the barns, and the land itself. These animals don't just belong to the past, they carry it forward, embodying values that modern agriculture desperately needs to remember: resilience, respect for nature, and connection between people and animals. Looking ahead, the survival of breeds like the Florida cracker, Milking Devon, and Randall Lineback will depend on more young farmers choosing to raise them. Education plays a major role. Agricultural schools and extension programs are beginning to include heritage breed management in their courses, teaching students how genetic diversity strengthens the entire livestock industry. There's also new research exploring how these old breeds might contribute to modern challenges such as climate adaptation and regenerative soil systems. At the same time, the rise of social media and documentary storytelling has helped bring these cattle into public awareness. Videos, podcasts, and YouTube channels dedicated to sustainable farming have introduced audiences around the world to the charm and importance of heritage breeds. It's not uncommon now for a viewer to see a Florida cracker calf being born or a Randall cow grazing in the snow and feel compelled to learn more or even support conservation efforts. Awareness breeds action. Economically, heritage cattle offer an interesting advantage for niche markets. Their meat often commands premium prices for its flavor, texture, and ethical background. Heritage milk and cheese producers find that consumers are willing to pay more for unique, small-batch dairy products. These markets won't replace industrial agriculture, but they carve out a valuable space for small farmers seeking sustainability over scale. In that way, preserving endangered breeds also preserves small farms themselves. As we step back from the fields and look at these remarkable breeds, the Florida cracker, the Milking Devon, and the Randall Lineback, it's clear they represent more than just rare livestock. They are living pieces of history, survivors from a time when every animal had a purpose and every breed told a story. Each of these cattle carries generations of resilience, adaptation, and hard-earned wisdom in their bloodlines. They remind us that farming isn't just about production, it's about preservation, balance, and respect for the land and its creatures. These endangered cattle have weathered centuries of change, from the birth of colonial farms to the rise of industrial agriculture. And now, thanks to small farmers, breeders, and organizations working tirelessly to protect them, there's still hope. But their survival depends on awareness, on people like you who care enough to learn their stories and share them with others. If you enjoyed discovering these hidden treasures of America's farming past, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and keep stories like this alive. Subscribe to Beyond the Barn for more journeys into rare breeds, forgotten farms, and the people working to protect them for future generations. And don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell us which of these cattle fascinated you the most, or share your own experiences with heritage breeds. Together, we can keep these stories, and these incredible animals, thriving for years to come. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep exploring what lies beyond the barn.